low-level use flags, and you don't want to change the host architecture, and you don't want to play around with the compiler flags, you can start straight from a stage 3, and you don't have to compile all the way or way into your system, and it won't be that hard. So now there are prepared stages for stage 3 for the most common architectures. So don't be scared. It's not that hard, and I think the installation handbook is really straightforward. So you follow the steps, and it will result in a working system. And it helps you understand your system in more detail. So if you are following the handbook, you will basically see what steps other distros installation disks are doing for you. So formatting for example, setting up your hard drive, formatting your partitions, partitioning, installing. So you can take a look at all these small steps, and you can have your control all over it. Compiling your kernel, I think we won't be able to cover that, but the installation handbook says that the default is manual. So you configure your kernel manually. It gives some advice on the most common options you have to keep enabled. But for somebody who is doing it the first time, I think it's a little overwhelming. So I'm doing it for many years now, so it's not that hard for me to make myself familiar around the. I don't know how many of you compile your own kernel. So if you issue menu config, you will have this nice user-friendly graphical interface for doing stuff. For example, if I want to processor type and features, if I enter, these are processor level stuff, we won't have enough time to go all through this because it's just crazy. But for example, if I'd like to add support for a given network card, for example the wireless card, I go into device drivers, network device support, sorry, but I'm sorry, network device. You see teaming, team driver, network console logging, the resolution Ethernet driver support. Oh, these are the non-wireless stuff. And somewhere, yeah, this is the wireless LAN. And under the wireless LAN, I don't know what type of it is, but you see that all devices which has all device which has support for is listed here. So maybe it was a rolling, but so here you can enable or disable, and you can even make it a module. Most distributions do it in a way that they enable a lot of hardware as a module, and the kernel will pick it up if it detects that you have that hardware. So in my case, I keep it tight, so I only keep enable what I know that I have. So I have an Intel card, and I also have a USB Realtek device. That's why I keep those two enabled, but otherwise you can enable whatever you want. And there are so many options that it's hard to know all of that. So if I run into difficulties and I have a new hardware and I don't know what driver I should use, I would do that. I would use a live CD. The live CD will select the proper module for me, and I just take a look at on what it uses, and then I can enable in my explicit kernel what I have. So there are many
We'll
options.
give you a list. So say you want to install on a new machine, so you use the live CD to boot up. It recognizes all the hardware. Is there some way then to export a list of all the required modules that you need, or you just kind of have to just go through and write notes?
Yeah, there's not, I don't know any utilities which would make it easy to do that. But what you can do is to boot up the live CD, and you can use ls mode, list modules, and it will list all modules which got pulled in while it is booting up. And I would make sure that these modules have to be compiled in for my own kernel, if I'm compiling my own.
I think the Knoppix distro can do something like that.
Well, LSMod is the closest. I guess I wasn't thinking, but yeah, that would be probably the best way, because it would give you a list of everything that was recognized during boot into the live system, and then you can tailor your kernel of the system you're building to have only those modules, so your kernel's basically not bogged down with a bunch of extra code that that's never going to need.
And I also, for example, you can turn to dmask. So when I plugged in your, I see that it's some rolling. So the manufacturer is rolling. So I would probably enable the rolling driver if I want to try it. For most distributions, it will be automatic. So you don't have to do that.
How long typically is the process to recompile a kernel?
Since I only have enabled what I do really have, it depends on the hardware, but it's not more than 10 minutes. On this, this is a strong laptop, but not the newest one. Already a couple of years old, so it won't take ages. Even it compiles a LibreOffice, a full LibreOffice in less than 2 hours. I don't know, 1.5 hours or something. So on a desktop machine, it will be no more than an hour, or even less. For example, the newest server, it will compile it less than 30 minutes. It's not that long. I remember the days, I don't want to bore you, but when I was sleeping on the floor in a room, when we were waiting for 2 hours to fetch the kernel sources, and then the compilation took overnight. So it was just, nowadays you are issuing, you are drinking a coffee and it's ready. So
10 minutes is a vanilla from ground up, or just a differential
vanilla, if you compile it. But if you have many modules enabled, it will be a little bit more. So it depends on what my kernel, which has all sorts of stuff for this machine, it's not more than 15 minutes.
Wow.
It has a 4-core processor, but not the newest. So
Yeah, I once recompiled. I made some changes to the BSD kernel back in like version 4 or something, and it was on one of the first Pentium 1. I think it was a 120 megahertz computer. So I started compiling it at home and went to bed. I got up the next morning and it was still doing stuff, and then I went to work, and then I came home from work and it was still doing stuff. It was more than 24 hours to compile a kernel.
Yeah, I think a stock kernel for a distribution like Ubuntu, they have everything enabled in case you need it. So
it'll take much longer. If the user don't have the experience to do the configuration for himself, then you can use this gen kernel command to compile a kernel according to the general specifications of the distribution. So it'll just like keep a lot of modules enabled, like for a default kernel of Ubuntu or Fedora.
Is this just usually you can access the kernel configuration file for kernels of Red Hat and stuff? Is it just download the configuration file?
You can access some Fedora or Debian, because in the file system, in proc or in sys, you can find a configuration, and you can copy it for yourself and move it over. But you also have to know that there are some custom modifications sometimes in those kernels, but often these are not about configuration options. So most of the time, if you are spying on a Fedora or Ubuntu kernel and you can steal the config from the proc or sys file system, you can use it for your own and do further modifications for yourself.
Gentoo, it can use a Linux kernel or a BSD kernel, right?
It can use a BSD, as I know, but I haven't played around with that, so I don't have experience. But the whole stuff, you know, for example, if you have a BSD kernel, you have the BSD system, so you have a core system, but what package system you use, it's free of choice. So you are not forced to use that specific BSD's package system. You can use Gentoo's, for example.
Isn't Portage a BSD package system? The system that you use is Portage. Did I say it?
Portage is the package repository.
Yeah.
So I think it's available for free BSD.
Yeah.
But as I mentioned, I don't use that. So, but theoretically you can. So.
Are you a contributor to the Gentoo project? Do you contribute code or patches?
Sometimes I'm just sending bug reports, and often if I can, I also suggest the resolution of the problem, or if I can, I attach a patch. But I'm not a real software developer, so serious problems I cannot solve. But if it's obvious, I can point on it, and I also try to participate in the hardened development, especially many years before when it wasn't that mature. But nowadays it's over me, so they are beyond me regarding the complexity. There were some times where I was playing around with compiler. There are some internal compiler flags you can play around with. So if it detects that it's a kernel, it won't put the stack protection in and stuff. So when Harden was in an early stage, they are playing around with these settings, and I was also trying to have them some, but I wasn't a named developer or something even at that stage.
Did you correct some e-build files or anything?
There were some minor modifications, yeah. I've never haunted, I think I don't earn my name there, or I'm not famous or something, so I just have tiny bits of improvements I could help the community with. But it's more interesting that on later sliding I will try to speak some words on the GR security. So let's keep this quickly. So if I have to name a distribution which is based on Gentoo, I would name Sabayon. This is a binary distribution, so Gentoo has its own infrastructure for binaries, so you don't have to go source based if you are using Gentoo. If you are using immerge build pkg option and using the quick pkg command, you can and Sabayon provides their binary packages. You can do it pretty fast, like for binary distribution as well. So Sabayon is something which is based on Gentoo. You can have a pretty quick first installation because of the binary packages provided, but you can also play around with it.
Well,
It was as easy as an Ubuntu install.
Yeah. Yeah, because, yeah.
Why would I choose that instead of Ubuntu?
Instead of Ubuntu. I think I would choose that if I don't want to spend a lot of time on fine-tuning and installing my system, but despite of that, I still want some low-level control of some features, like I showed you before.
I still have the use flags and these stuff.
Yeah.
And like if I can see that I don't like the systemd and I want to use the OpenRC, I can do that.
Yeah.
So I have this. I see. You just save yourself from the compilation, so they have all kinds of compiled variations.
No, they have their choice. So you are good with Sabayon if you accept their choices and don't want to divert very far. Or so if you want to divert at a lot of places from Sabayon, then Sabayon may not be good for you. But if you are good with their choices, you can do it pretty quickly, and despite you will have the chance to modify it a little bit. So that's a good distribution to take a look at or try. Although the user base is not that large as for Ubuntu or for Fedora or something, so yeah, this is a drawback. And if I want to name something which is derived from Gentoo, then this is Fantu. Fantu was founded by Daniel Robbins, who was originally established Gentoo, and he meant this as an enhancement over Gentoo. So the repository is based on Git now for Fantu, and it also uses immerge, but it's meant to be faster and stuff. So, but I think it's mainly for developers and who want to have some fun with Gentoo. I'm still using Gentoo and I think I don't have enough to play around with Fantu.
Do you know how big is the user base compared to Gentoo?
No, but it's definitely not that large. And Gentoo is even not a popular distro, so Fantu probably is not that popular either, but has the advantage that they can use the infrastructure of Gentoo, so the packages and all the stuff, because it's compatible. So they can rely on Gentoo's improvements. So Fantu is Fantu. And some rolling distros I would point at, if you ever have enough time, as I'm 40 now, I think I will never have enough time for that again. Once I went through the Linux from scratch install, which is a very good experience to have, but it requires time. And my problem with Linux from scratch is that you also have the low-level control, but you don't have the necessary background structures to maintain your system. So you cannot easily upgrade, in my opinion, if you have a Linux from scratch. So that's why it's a no-go for, I think, for everyday use. But for example, Gentoo is very popular sometimes in the embedded community, because you can cross-compile and you have a very fine-grained low-level control. So I think Gentoo is a good, so it has some liberty of Linux from scratch, but you can also use it as a primary distro of your own. I will also mention Arch Linux. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but the package manager is Pacman, and it's very friendly towards compiling from source. So it has a very good forum and a very good wiki. So sometimes as a Gentoo user, sometimes I'm reading some Arch wikis, because they sometimes you can find some solutions for your problems in the Arch Linux forums. And I'm also mentioning Frugalware. This has some Hungarian connections. Some developers are Hungarians based on Slackware, and they are also using Pacman as the package management system.
But Arch, that's binary by default, so it's not from source.
Yeah, but it's binary by default, but it has recipes, and it's very easy for that distribution as well to go source based or compile your own package. Arch is very good also. So if you want to play around with some source compilation, and in the meantime you are binary, Arch is also something to consider because it's very good. And yeah, some more words on Gentoo Harden. So it covers several techniques, including SE Linux, GR security, RSBAC. I don't know, all these three would require a separate talk here, because they are very completely different and very interesting technologies to harden your system. Besides these, Harden is focusing on hardening the tool chain, which is hardening the tool chain involves compiling position independent executables and position independent code in order to make them be able to relocate in the memory. And they are also trying to enforce relocation and binding now. Bind now means if you are starting a binary having rel row and bin now, it'll load all libraries at start time. So if you are starting a large binary, it won't load all its depending libraries in the memory at start time. It'll keep some away, and it'll load them further on as you are using it, and it thinks that you will need them.
Like on demand?
On demand, on demand, yeah. If you are using bin now, but if you are delaying these loads, from the security point of view, it's better to have loaded all at once to get a good randomization in the memory. So when somebody is about security, you would go for loading all stuff at start time, which will lengthen the startup of the binary a little bit, but the memory randomization will be better. So Harden also try to enforce these on executables. There are very few exceptions, and they are also fighting against text relocations, which are against security, and they often result in bad coding practices. And there are architectures, not our common architecture we use, but are other architectures which cannot actually run text relocation binaries properly. So fighting against text rels is not just about security, but it's also about quality and other architectures as well.
Yeah, so text relocation, when you say that, that's not like some text, it's an assembly format, in the assembly format of executables and libraries. You have executable sections, and there's a text section where basically you have data which is used by the code.
Yeah.
And that's what sometimes exploits try to play with.
Yeah, because yeah. So if you can alter the text segment and make the binary segment to go into that. Nowadays they are trying to separate the two in order to make it explicit what is the runnable code and what is the textual code. And if the coding style or some other problem, because of some other problems, these will not be separated in a good way, you may end up with a text trap. So you have to find a reason, and you can, there's always a way to get rid of these. The only problem is when sometimes there are some packages which are binaries, so binary distributed, non-source, and they have these sometimes. So you get something what you haven't compiled, and there are some textures in, and you cannot do anything about it, unfortunately.
So maybe someone asked already, but Gentoo hardened, is it a separate distribution, or is it just a set of best use cases for Gentoo what you apply?
It's a project, and there are sub-projects, and each sub-projects have their own leaders. So for SE Linux, there are some interested people who try to maintain the policy. There are some GR security interested folks who are trying to keep list of PAX flags on the system. These are flags which has a that an executable requires some additional low settings, a little bit lowering the security to be able to run. So they are keep track of these. And I think there are just a very few people who use RSBAC, but there might be some more in the future, because there have been some hysteria and scandals around GR security lately. I don't know if you follow the news on these, but in the hardened community, not just for Gentoo, but also for other distributions, most people relied on PAX and GR security. Even those persons who are using SE Linux were using PAX as well. And there have been some problems a couple of years before, when the developers of PAX and GR security blamed some companies that they are using their product, their software, in an improper way. And the end result of this debate was that they discontinued to distribute their long-term support patches.
And you can maybe name some of these companies?
I'm not sure. There were some embedded companies, Router,
Google?
I think not Google. It was some device manufacturer who.
Well, the Google guys try to.
Later on, yeah.
Okay.
So one main developer of GR security is Brett Spranger. He's a German guy, and the main developer of PAX is Pipac, who is a Hungarian person. So they were attacked, and they were attacking back. So they discontinued distributing their patches for the long-term kernels, and they only distributed their testing patch for the community after that debate a couple of years ago. And now, a couple of months before, they announced that they will no longer distribute their testing patch either, because they are blaming basically Google some project. The Google was behind that project, or it's behind that project. They are blaming them that they want to just pick their code, and they were doing it in a bad way from the security point of view. So there was a big debate on it.
Yeah, you could see that they didn't understand the code really, and they made some mistakes, which would result in security flaws.
Yeah, but when they started debating, they also were blaming GR security and tags not to be secure enough. So it was a hysteria in the security community, and basically they ended up not distributing their code for free in the future. So there's
So
now
what was the future? Did they kill themselves with that, or?
they have a company, and a lot of companies are buying their patches. So I think, or at least I hope that they can make a living out of it. But as a member of a security community, I'm a little bit sad about it that it ended up that way, that they no longer distribute their testing patch either, because a lot of people were relying on it.
So if I would like to try harden Gentoo, I wouldn't be able to get GR security?
Currently, no. Actually, there would be a way. I'm a beta tester for them, so I have access to their code, but I'm now a little bit worried that if the community doesn't have their code, there won't be any people testing it. So if something is as complex as the kernel, it requires a community who is using it in their daily routine, and especially some people who are not using their code on a production machine, and they are free to play around with it. So if you are not distributing your code, then you are losing these persons. So less testing means more problems, maybe. I'm not sure here about it.
Maybe a generic question. So let's say I will have a server. I want to decide what distribution I install it. Why would I choose? So why would the hardened Gentoo be more secure than, let's say, I select Ubuntu server and I try to follow all the security guidelines?
I think that from the toolchain point of view, the toolchain hardening is still the most advanced for hardened Gentoo, so a little bit ahead of Ubuntu, although they have some hardened initiatives, as also Debian have hardened initiative, which is about to cover these toolchain hardenings, but Gentoo has the most currently. And although you don't have the chance to use the GR security patch now, but there are some persons maintaining a long-term version of it, the last available for long-term, and they are hoping for that in a couple of years, until they maintain that long-term, there will be a long-term solution for this problem, the discontinuation. Maybe they redistribute their code, or there will be some solution.
So basically the settings are more secure, so you can say that it can probably dodge more attacks by default.
Yeah. Yeah, but there are some debates on that the toolchain hardening is not about everything. So
Yeah.
So if you are talking about security, you're thinking of nowadays, if you have a harmful code embedded in an ad, which is in a JavaScript ad on a page, and it doesn't want to alter your system, it just wants to spy on your user data, and you may alter your user files. Having these toolchain hardenings won't have any effect. So there are security problems at a much at a completely different manner, which nowadays are around. So this JavaScript harmful code would wipe your data, your user data in your browser, or could access some user directory, and you won't have a protection for that if you are using these. So I'm not a great fan of interpreted languages and virtual machines.
Do you have more slides or demos?
I think maybe this one will last. Yeah. So thank you for your attention. I hope that I could give you a little bit of an insight on Gentoo. Maybe it won't be your primary distribution, but it's worth to take a look at on it. On the upper right corner, you can see the national crown of Hungary, the kingdom, which it's no longer a kingdom, but in the past it was a kingdom. And this is a picture of Budapest overnight, where in the middle we can see the chain bridge. So if you ever visit the city, then you will most probably would see some nice sites there. So thank you again, and if you have some further questions, please feel free to.
Thanks.
Well,
I
thank
don't
you.
think, I don't think I've seen a Gentoo demo or anybody even talking about it for a long time.
Yeah. We had some members in the past that used it a
And they
lot.
were a pretty hardcore member, they were pretty
Yeah.
hardcore about it.
Drew?
Yeah, Drew
Mike.
and, yeah, I think Mike was doing Gentoo. That was his distro.
Yeah, I think it's an unpopular distro nowadays. So the user base is a couple of persons. So there was a peak many years before when it was a little more popular, but nowadays I think it's still around because of the ease of development. So some embedded people and some people who really make use of these features like to use it still.
Have you ever tried Gentoo?
Mm.
But I'm learning Yocto, and that has a lot of similarities. A lot, and you have
What
this
is it?
Yocto Linux, it's for embedded, and it has all the same three-stage bootstrapping, and they even in the book they told that they inherit stuff from Gentoo.
And nowadays, each distribution often touch some stuff from another. So if Debian maintainers find a solution first, then the Fedora will take over and all other distros. So unfortunately, there are some benefits for all distros. Maybe this year won't be the year of the desktop Linux, but I will still be a Linux user for a pretty long time, I believe. Although in the everyday work I use Windows as well, because there are some softwares which are specifically Windows written, and I'm not running a virtual machine on this one. You have to lower the security settings in order to be able to start a virtual machine, so I don't do it. I'm using a separate computer for that.
Well, thanks for the demonstration.
Thank you.
I've been really exhausted, so I don't know how much of it will be retained, but it was interesting.
So thank you again, and I'm happy that I'm visiting Java again in.
How do you like the weather and the temperature? I remember that last time you presented, the members told you that it will be hot.
I like hot weather. So as I mentioned, I was doing some research in Birmingham. The climate was also hot there, but I like it. So it's not a problem for me. And last day we were in